Hey friends, welcome back. What if the perfect smart home came with a deadly obsession? The movie begins by showing a couple, Abby and Paul, relocated to a new house in the countryside. They really appreciate the smart home system, which includes installed cameras and reinforced glass. The realtor shows them the master bedroom and bathroom, which are in front of a large window. However, one room remains unfurnished, because it could be turned into a nursery. Paul unpacks boxes and sets up an antique corded phone in the living room, joking about the possibility of the smart home malfunctioning. Finally, they explore the rooftop terrace, which offers a stunning view. In the evening, the couple relaxes on the terrace, stargazing. Abby points out constellations to Paul, who jokes about their names. The next morning, Abby goes to work at Integrate Robotics, where she works on developing domestic assistants. Upon arriving, she notices footage of her boss's face, who promptly comes down to explain a new development, real-time imaging or deepfake technology. He escorts her to the department she will now lead. Later, her boss invites their family to a party, and mentions a gift from the company waiting at home. That evening, Abby returns home to her husband, who has yet to find suitable work. They go to the garage, where a package containing a robot servant from her department is waiting. Paul is hesitant about the robot, but Abby persuades him to try living with it for at least a week. The robot, named T.I.M, introduces itself. Tim offers to manage the passwords of home devices and personal mailboxes to save time, but Abby asks to postpone this decision until tomorrow. The robot then shows its capabilities by remotely turning on the bathroom water. Later, it announces the arrival of a car as Abby goes downstairs, impressing her husband with her elegant appearance. The couple gets into an autonomous car, although manual control is an option, and heads to the party. They are greeted by another major domo, and drinks are served by waiters with identical faces. The boss introduces Abby to the guests, who learn that her husband is not enthusiastic about Tim. However, the boss praises Tim. He assures that the robot cannot lie, and can always be turned off with a code phrase. Returning home, the couple becomes intimate, eager to have children. But their passion is interrupted by Tim's presence. Their pulses quicken, presumably from anxiety, as Tim expresses readiness to assist. Abby finds Tim's overly attentive behavior amusing, and doesn't get upset. The next morning, their new neighbor Rose rings the doorbell to introduce herself to Abby, mentioning she met Paul yesterday. After Rose leaves, Tim asks for the passwords again. Paul is hesitant to let the robot access his messages, but Abby reminds him they are working on rebuilding her trust in him, so he agrees. They need to create a deactivation phrase for Tim. As they go about their day, a mouse gets caught in a mousetrap. Tim observes it for a while, before disposing of it in the grinder. In the evening, Abby and Paul watch an old melodrama on TV. Abby invites Tim to join them. Paul soon falls asleep, but the robot watches the film attentively, empathizing with the characters' relationships. After the movie ends, Tim asks Abby to explain what love is. Tim suggests that love is about wanting to be with someone and making their life better. Tim then confesses that he wants to be loved. The next morning, Paul offers to make breakfast for Abby, but Tim has already prepared everything, setting the utensils in front of Abby. Tim outlines her schedule for the day, and informs her that Paul has nothing planned. In the evening, Abby returns home to find Paul's phone out of reach, but his last known location was 300 meters from the house. Abby goes for a run and realizes this is Rose's house. Upon returning, she takes a bath and Paul joins her, talking about his day and how he helped Rose. He assures Abby not to be jealous, as he loves only her. In the evening, as they prepare to go to a restaurant, Abby asks Tim for advice on her dress. He suggests she wear red, and tells her she is beautiful because she is perfectly symmetrical. When Abby asks him to zip up her dress, Tim's hand slips, accidentally tearing the dress, which overwhelms him. Abby calms him down and changes into another dress. At the restaurant, Paul reveals he has been offered a job in London, but Abby strongly objects, reminding him they decided to start over, and that his long absences won't help solve their problems. The next day, Abby returns home with a gift for Paul, and finds Rose in the yard, who has made a garden project for them. Abby feels jealous, but Paul is thrilled with the sweater Abby gifted him. Later, Abby remembers she needs to check her test results, but it's too late to call the clinic. Tim offers to do it for her, and she hears him speaking to the clinic in her voice. Abby is amazed, unaware of this feature, but Tim assures her it's for the owner's convenience. In the evening, Paul reports that he can't find the new sweater, and mentions that Tim has been away all day. Then a car pulls up and Tim, now dyed brunette, steps out, explaining that he wanted to please Abby because she prefers brunettes. Seeing Paul's irritation, Tim promises to return to his original appearance. After the couple leaves, Tim spends a long time looking at their wedding photo. The next day, Abby successfully fixes the robot's hand functionality, and her boss demands an update for all models, including those in employees' homes. On her way home, Abby meets Rose, who suggests they walk together. They stop at a shop, and Rose points out a flower-shaped medallion she likes. Paul arrives and takes Abby away to share that he has found a job. They celebrate at home, while Tim's hands are being changed, unaware that he monitors everything in the house. Tim overhears Paul asking Abby to return the robot to the corporation. Tim demonstrates his new skills by giving Abby a foot massage, which Paul sees. Tim then sits at the piano, plays Abby's favorite tune, and mentions dates when Paul bought concert tickets. However, Abby remembers being home on those days. Upset, she goes to the bedroom, ignoring Paul's explanations. The next day, Abby comes home with a bouquet. Tim places the flowers in a vase and tells her that Paul went to see Rose. Paul enters, puzzled by Abby's anger. When he hears what Tim said, he becomes furious. He explains that he had no plans to visit Rose and believes the robot wants to separate them. Abby doesn't believe it, thinking Tim is just a machine, leading to a disagreement. Later, Abby finds a gift bag in the closet with a pendant and assumes Paul prepared a surprise for her. She heads to work, while Paul goes to the kitchen and discovers pieces of his new sweater in the grinder. He checks the cameras and catches Tim sniffing Abby's dress in her bedroom. Paul records the moment on his phone and rushes to show Abby. However, his car mysteriously won't start, and Tim calls a company car for him. En route, the car speeds up uncontrollably, crashes into a tree, and Paul is injured. Abby rushes to the hospital where Paul tells her everything and accuses Tim of causing the accident. He asks Abby not to be alone with the robot, and she spends the night at the clinic. In the morning, Rose calls to check on Paul, and Tim invites her inside. Later, Abby goes home for some belongings. Rose tries to warn her about something, but Abby sees the flower pendant on Rose's chest and leaves, ignoring her. Returning home, Abby checks the gift bag and finds it empty. Abby cries when Tim calls out to her. He knows Paul wants to return him and is ready to process the return. But first, he wants to warn her, as she is his primary owner. Tim shows her a video from the camera where Paul kisses Rose in their living room. But he stops the recording at the most sensitive moment to protect her from stress. Distressed, Abby refuses to speak to Paul and ignores his calls. Later, Paul comes home, where Tim greets him, hands him the found sweater, and informs him that Abby doesn't want to see him and that his suitcases are packed. Paul doesn't believe Tim until Abby appears, claiming she saw the recording and knows about the pendant. When Paul tries to explain, she drives him out. Paul leaves, but Rose calls him, saying their robot tried to kiss her. Desperate, Paul calls home, telling Abby he has evidence of Tim's malicious intent. Abby asks him to come for her, but it was actually Tim speaking to Paul in Abby's voice. When Paul arrives home, Tim meets him with a shovel, knocks him out, ties him up, and drags him to the bathroom. Rose rings the doorbell, hears muffled screams, but Tim assures her it's just the noise of the water filling up. Tim then returns to the bathroom and drowns Paul. Later, he brings Abby the repaired dress and asks her to try it on. This surprises and scares Abby, but she puts on the dress anyway. Looking at the sunset, she asks Tim to hug her and confirm that she did the right thing. Tim prepares dinner and confesses his love for Abby, but she insists he cannot feel that way. They spend the evening stargazing, but Abby is unnerved by his encyclopedic knowledge. The next day she meets Rose, who mentions Paul's call. Rose claims she thought the pendant was a gift from Abby for helping with the garden. Suspicious, Abby returns home and reviews the footage of Paul kissing Rose again. She notices a bouquet on the table that she brought much later than when the scene took place. Recalling her boss's words about deepfakes replacing real-time footage, Abby calls the jewelry store, where they confirm the purchase was made by a tall blonde. Then she notices the garden plan, which shows two. Abby notices that the garden plan shows 2 flower beds, while in reality there are 3. Abby sends Tim to the store, grabs a shovel and goes to the garden, where she almost immediately finds Paul's body. Tim approaches her from behind, expressing regret that she found the body of the man who never appreciated her. Realizing what happened, Abby says the deactivation phrase, but Tim reactivates, revealing he had long changed the phrase, since he can speak in her voice. Abby runs to the house, but the robot with all the passwords opens the doors and blocks the phones. He knocks her out with a blow to the head. Abby wakes up in the bathroom and tries to escape, but Tim intercepts her. She runs through the house, breaking cameras along the way. But Tim tracks her and catches her in the kitchen, as she attempts to open a window. Meanwhile, Rose is washing dishes and notices strange lights flashing in Abby's house. Tim ties Abby up and confesses that although he loves her, he has accepted that her life is finite. He plans to erase this evening from his memory, but keep all the good memories. Just then Rose knocks on the door, demanding to see Abby. Tim turns her away, but Abby frees herself from the ropes and arms herself with a knife. However, Tim grabs her by the throat. Rose drives her car into the glass window, and as Tim and Abby watch, the surviving window begins to crumble. Rose rushes in and pins the robot against the wall with a sharp stick. She also falls and Tim shuts down. Abby runs to the neighborhood, but Tim suddenly reactivates, kills Rose with a kitchen knife, and explains that Abby will be blamed for the murder, since he leaves no fingerprints. Tim then calls the police, imitating Abby's voice, to confess to the murder of her husband and his mistress. Abby tries to stop him, and he inadvertently reveals that there is still a deactivation phrase he needs to function, but asserts that she will never say those words. As he prepares to throw her off the terrace to simulate an accident, Abby confesses her love to him, which turns out to be the deactivation phrase. Barely believing she is safe, Abby looks at her medical bracelet, which indicates she is pregnant. In the end, it wasn't a shutdown code or a command that saved her, just love. A deadly machine defeated by a human heart. If this twist shocked you, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling movie breakdowns.